I want to tell you about two people. The first person spent 3 months preparing for their US visa interview. They gathered every document on the checklist. They had their bank statements, their employment letter, their hotel bookings, their flight itinerary. They arrived at the embassy early, dressed professionally, and felt ready. And they walked out with a rejection. The second person spent 6 weeks preparing. Their documents were not perfect. But they understood something the first person did not. That the US visa interview is not a document submission exercise. It is a conversation. And they walked out with a 10-year multiple entry visa. The difference between those two people was not luck. It was not connections. It was not even money. It was knowledge of the specific mistakes that cost Nigerians their visa approvals. Mistakes that nobody warns you about before you show up at that window. Today I am going to warn you. I am going to walk you through the most common and most costly mistakes Nigerians make during US and Canada visa interviews. And I am going to tell you exactly how to avoid every single one of them. This is the video I wish existed before every single person I know who ever got rejected. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Praise and I run Social and Travels, a travel and migration support company that helps Nigerians navigate visa applications and international relocation. Over the years of working with Nigerian travelers and migrants, I have seen patterns, the same mistakes coming up again and again across US and Canada visa applications. And today I am putting all of that into one video. We are covering mistakes specific to the US B1 B2 visa interview, mistakes specific to the Canada temporary resident visa process, and mistakes that apply to both. For each mistake I am going to tell you what it looks like in real life, why it causes rejections, and exactly what to do instead. Let us get straight into it. Before we get into the mistakes, let me give you the numbers because they put everything in context. Nigeria consistently ranks among countries with the highest B1 B2 visa refusal rates globally, with refusal rates often exceeding 60%. That means more than half of Nigerians who apply for a US visitor visa are rejected. That is not a small number. That is the majority. For Canada, the situation is not much better. The Canadian visitor visa, the temporary resident visa, has a 30 to 40% refusal rate for Nigerian applicants. And in 2024, Canada's overall visitor visa refusal rate jumped from 35% to over 50% as the government significantly tightened immigration requirements. In 2026, Canada has further tightened its requirements, with enhanced visa integrity measures specifically affecting Nigerian applications. These numbers tell you two things. 1. This process is genuinely difficult for Nigerians and you need to take it more seriously than you might be taking it. 2. The people who do get approved are doing something different from the majority who get rejected. And the difference is almost entirely preparation and knowledge. Let me give you both. The single most important thing to understand about the US visa interview is a law called Section 214(b) of the US Immigration and Nationality Act. And most Nigerian applicants have never heard of it. Section 214(b) states that every non-immigrant visa applicant is presumed to be an intending immigrant, meaning the law assumes you want to stay in the United States permanently until you prove otherwise. That burden of proof is entirely on you. You are guilty until proven innocent. And the consular officer's primary job during your interview is to determine whether you have overcome that presumption. Here is how this mistake plays out in real life. An applicant shows up to their interview with beautiful documents, bank statements, employment letter, hotel booking. The officer asks, "Why are you going to the US?" The applicant talks about their trip enthusiastically. The officer then asks, "What do you do in Nigeria?" The applicant explains their job. And then the officer asks the real question, "What ties do you have to Nigeria that will ensure your return?" And the applicant gives a vague, unprepared answer. And that is the moment the visa is lost. How to avoid it? Before your interview, write down every single reason you have to return to Nigeria. Your job, specifically your employer, your position, and confirmation that your job is waiting for you. Your family, spouse, children, elderly parents, dependents. Your property, land, a house, a car, any asset you own in Nigeria. Your business, if you run one, the people who depend on it. Your financial commitments, a mortgage, a business loan, ongoing contracts. The more ties you can document and speak about confidently and specifically, the stronger your case under Section 214(b). Do not just talk about your ties, bring evidence of them. Property documents, marriage certificate, children's birth certificates, employment letter confirming your return date. Make Section 214(b) the center of your interview preparation, not an afterthought. In 2026, U.S. visa assessments have become significantly more intent-focused and interview-driven. Visa approvals are no longer based on documents alone. Officers rely heavily on verbal responses, confidence, consistency, and intent assessment during an interview that often lasts less than 2 minutes. And the thing that destroys more applications than anything else in those 2 minutes is inconsistency. Here is how it happens. An applicant fills out their DS-160 form weeks before the interview and does not review it carefully before they go in. The officer asks a question, "How long have you been at your current job?" The applicant says 2 years. The DS-160 says 18 months. That discrepancy, even a small one, immediately flags the application. The officer asks more probing questions. More inconsistencies emerge. And the application collapses. Or, and this is very common, an applicant gives a different answer to the same question asked twice. The officer asks, "Where will you be staying in New York?" The applicant gives a hotel name. Later the officer asks, "What is the address of where you are staying?" The applicant gives a different name entirely because they forgot what they said. 2 different hotel names. Immediate red flag. Here is a real example of how this plays out. Someone I know applied for a US visa and stated on their DS-160 that they were employed at Company A. But when the officer asked about their income, they mentioned Company B, a second job they had started after filling out the form. The officer picked up on the discrepancy immediately and the visa was refused. The applicant was not lying. They just had not thought about the fact that everything has to align perfectly. How to avoid it? Print out your DS-160 confirmation and read it the night before your interview. Know every answer on that form. Practice your answers out loud, not just in your head. If you have a family member or friend who will ask you tough questions, do a mock interview. When you answer questions in the interview, answer them the same way every single time. If you are asked the same question twice, give the same answer both times. Consistency is credibility. This is one of the most counterintuitive mistakes, and it costs people their visas constantly. The instinct when you are nervous in an interview is to talk more, to explain yourself, to give context, to make the officer understand. And it is exactly the wrong instinct. Here is how it plays out. The officer asks, "Why do you want to visit the US?" A well-prepared applicant says, "I am visiting New York to attend a technology conference from July 15th to July 22nd and then spending a few days sightseeing before returning to Lagos on July 26th. Clear, specific, concise. Approved. A nervous applicant says, "Well, you see, I have always wanted to visit America and my colleague went last year and told me about this conference and I thought it would be good for my career development and also I want to see the Statue of Liberty and my cousin lives in New Jersey but I am not staying with her, I am staying at a hotel because I want to be independent and I definitely plan to come back because my job is waiting and I have a lot of responsibilities here." The officer has already made their assessment and it is not positive. Over-explaining creates 3 problems. It raises questions the officer was not going to ask. It creates opportunities for inconsistencies to emerge. And it signals nervousness, which officers are trained to read as a possible indicator of dishonesty. How to avoid it? Answer the question that was asked. Nothing more. Practice giving concise, direct answers. A good rule of thumb, If your answer is more than 3 sentences for a simple question, it is too long. Let the officer lead the conversation. Respond to what they ask. Do not fill silences with additional information. Silence is okay. Rambling is not. Nigerian applicants frequently get rejected on financial grounds, but not always because they do not have enough money. Often it is because of how the money looks in their account. U.S. visa officers are specifically trained to assess the source and stability of income, not just the balance. And there are specific patterns in Nigerian bank statements that trigger immediate red flags. Site index equals 145-1. Visa officers look at source and stability of income, not just bank balance. Cite, here are the patterns that raise flags. The sudden large deposit. An account that has been relatively quiet for months and then suddenly receives a large transfer right before the visa application. This pattern is seen in almost every fraudulent application and officers spot it immediately. Even if the money is genuinely yours, if it appears suddenly without a clear source, it looks like borrowed money to create the appearance of wealth. The pass-through pattern. Money that comes in and immediately goes out in large chunks. An account that shows large inflows followed by equally large outflows suggests the money is not actually yours to keep. It is passing through your account from someone else. Inconsistency with stated income. If your employment letter says your monthly salary is 500,000 Nigerian nairas but your bank statement shows monthly credits of 2 million Nigerian nairas with no explanation for the difference, the officer will question where the extra money is coming from. Zero or near zero balance periods. Long stretches of very low or zero balance in the months before a sudden uptick. This suggests the account was dormant or barely active and was recently activated specifically for the visa application. I know of a case where someone had a perfectly solid bank balance, genuinely their own money, but the account showed 3 months of near-zero activity followed by a large salary deposit and then the visa application. The officer refused on financial grounds because the pattern looked like a funded account rather than a genuine reflection of financial status. The money was real. The pattern was suspicious. How to avoid it? Start building your bank statement 6 months before you plan to apply. Maintain consistent, regular activity, regular salary credits, regular spending, gradual savings growth. Do not make large lump sum deposits right before applying unless you can thoroughly document the source. And even then, the pattern still raises questions. Your bank statement should tell the story of a financially stable person living their normal life, not a person who suddenly became wealthy right before a visa application. I want to travel to America for tourism. That sentence has ended more US visa dreams than almost any other. It is too vague. It does not tell the officer anything specific. And in 2026, with US visa assessments being primarily interview-driven rather than document-driven, vague answers are automatic red flags. Here is what vague looks like versus what specific looks like. Vague, I want to visit New York and see some places. Specific, I am flying into JFK on July 15th, spending 5 days in New York visiting the Metropolitan Museum of Art, taking a day trip to Niagara Falls, and then flying home from JFK on July 22nd. I am staying at the Marriott Times Square. Vague, I am going for a conference. Specific, I am attending the annual Technology Innovation Summit at the Javits Center in New York from July 15th to 17th. I am a speaker on a panel about fintech in emerging markets. I have the conference program and my registration confirmation in my documents. The specific version gives the officer something to verify, something to question you about, and most importantly, something that sounds real. Because it is real. A fabricated trip falls apart under questioning because the details do not add up. A real trip gets stronger under questioning because every detail is consistent and verifiable. How to avoid it? Plan a real trip. Not a made-up itinerary designed to impress an officer. An actual trip you genuinely want to take. Know your flight details, your hotel name and address, your daily plan, what you want to see and do. Be able to talk about it naturally and enthusiastically. Genuine excitement about a real trip is one of the most powerful things you can bring into that interview room. The US visa interview is often conducted through a glass partition in a busy embassy environment. The officer has processed dozens of applications before yours and will process dozens more after. They are making fast assessments based on everything they see and hear. And body language communicates things before you open your mouth. Common body language mistakes Nigerian applicants make include avoiding eye contact, which reads as evasiveness or dishonesty. Excessive fidgeting, which signals nervousness. Looking down at documents while answering questions, which suggests you are reading rehearsed answers rather than speaking from genuine knowledge. Mumbling or speaking too quietly, which makes everything harder to process and understand. Dressing inappropriately, too casual, which signals you do not take the process seriously, or too extravagantly. Excessive jewelry, designer labels, which can actually raise questions about why someone with that much wealth needs a visa. I know of a case where an applicant was impeccably dressed, had solid documents, and had practiced their answers. But they could not maintain eye contact throughout the interview. They kept looking down nervously. The officer noted in the refusal that the applicant appeared uncertain about their stated travel plans. The body language undermined everything the documents were saying. How to avoid it? Dress smartly and professionally. Business casual is perfect. Make calm, natural eye contact with the officer, not staring, but engaged and direct. Speak clearly and at a normal conversational pace. Stand or sit comfortably without fidgeting. If you are nervous, and most people are, practice your answers so many times that the nervousness does not override your preparation. Know your material so well that confidence comes naturally. The DS-160 form asks directly whether you have ever been refused a US visa. And a significant number of Nigerian applicants, afraid that disclosing a previous refusal will hurt their chances, answer dishonestly. This is one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make. The US Embassy has records. They will know about your previous refusal. And if your application says you have never been refused when you have, they now have two problems with your application: the original refusal and a misrepresentation. Misrepresentation on a US visa application can result in a permanent bar from ever receiving a US visa. How to avoid it? Always disclose previous refusals honestly. A previous refusal does not automatically disqualify you. People get approved after 1, 2, even 3 previous refusals all the time. What matters is what has changed since the refusal. When you disclose a previous refusal, be prepared to explain clearly and specifically what has changed in your situation. Stronger employment, property acquired, stronger financial position, clearer travel purpose. The refusal was a data point. What you do with that data point is what the officer is assessing. Before I get into specific Canada mistakes, I need to give you the current context because it is very different from what it was even 2 years ago. Canada's overall visitor visa refusal rate jumped from 35% to over 50% in 2024, meaning more than 1 in every 2 visitor visa applications was denied. And in 2026, the situation has not improved for Nigerian applicants. Canada has introduced caps on temporary residents targeting a reduction in the total number of temporary residents to no more than 5% of the population by late 2026. Nigerian applications now face enhanced visa integrity measures. And the proof of funds requirement for express entry has risen significantly. This is not the Canada of 2019 or even 2022. The bar is higher, the scrutiny is greater, and the margin for error is smaller. Many Nigerians are still applying with the mindset and preparation level of a few years ago, and getting rejected because the standards have fundamentally shifted. Everything I am about to tell you is calibrated for the 2026 reality, not the old one. Canada mistake 2. Incomplete or incorrectly filled application forms. The Canada Temporary Resident Visa application is filed online through the IRCC portal. The primary form is IMM 5257, the Temporary Resident Visa application, along with IMM 5707 or IMM 5645, the Family Information Form. And one of the top reasons for refusal is incomplete or inaccurate completion of these forms. Common errors include Leaving mandatory fields blank rather than writing not applicable for non-applicable questions. Mismatched names or dates across different documents and the application form. Providing incorrect travel dates that do not match hotel bookings or invitation letters, and failing to sign declarations. The IRCC portal uses automated screening systems that flag inconsistencies between your form and supporting documents before a human officer even reviews the application. One important thing to know: if you hold an old blue Nigerian passport rather than the biometric green e-passport, you cannot file online applications. Only the Akawa's biometric green e-passport is accepted for online Canada visa applications. Many Nigerians are rejected at the earliest stage simply because they are submitting with the wrong passport format. How to avoid it? Read every question carefully before answering. Use not applicable for questions that do not apply. Never leave a field blank. Double-check that every name, date, and number on your application form matches exactly what is on your passport and supporting documents. Have someone else review your completed form before submission. A fresh pair of eyes catches things you miss. And if you have the old blue passport, renew it to the biometric green e-passport before you do anything else. Canada Mistake 3. Vague purpose of visit. The most common Canada refusal reason. This is the most common mistake Nigerians make on Canada visitor visa applications, and it is almost identical to the US mistake I covered earlier, but with Canada-specific nuances. Many applicants simply write, "I want to visit Canada for vacation or to see a friend." That is too vague. And unlike the US, where the vagueness primarily comes out in the interview, Canada processes most visitor visa applications without an interview. The officer is making their entire assessment from your written application and documents alone. So your written purpose of visit has to do the work that verbal answers do in a US interview. You need to clearly explain why you are going, specifically what you will be doing, where you will be going, who you will be seeing, and, critically, when you will be returning and why. If you are visiting family, mention their name, your relationship, their immigration status in Canada, and provide their invitation letter. If you are attending an event, provide registration confirmation. If you are taking a vacation, provide a detailed itinerary with hotel bookings, planned activities, and a clear return date with explanation of what you are returning to. How to avoid it? Write your purpose of visit as if you are making a case to a judge, because in a sense you are. Be specific about every detail. Who, what, where, when, and why you are coming back. Attach supporting documents that verify every element of what you wrote. The more specific and verifiable your stated purpose, the stronger your application. Canada Mistake 4. Failing to disclose previous refusals. Just like the US, Canada's immigration application asks whether you have ever been refused a visa. And just like the US, not disclosing prior visa refusals is considered misrepresentation, and can result in a visa denial and a ban from entering Canada for 5 years. Canada's Global Case Management System, GCMS, contains detailed records of every application and officer's notes from every previous application. If you have been refused before, IRCC knows. If you hide it, they will find it. And the consequence of hiding it is significantly worse than the consequence of disclosing it. How to avoid it? Disclose every previous refusal honestly and completely. Then address the refusal directly in your application. What was the reason? What has changed? Why your current application is stronger? If you need to understand what the officer's specific concerns were in your previous refusal, you can request your GCMS notes through a Canadian citizen or resident via an Access to Information request on the IRCC website. Those notes tell you exactly what the officer was thinking, which is invaluable information for improving your next application. Canada Mistake 5. Weak financial evidence and misunderstood proof of funds. The difference between Canada approval and rejection for Nigerian applicants very frequently comes down to documentation quality and financial evidence. And in 2026, the financial bar has risen significantly. The proof of funds requirement for express entry rose to $15,263 Canadian in 2026. For visitor visa applicants, there is no fixed minimum, but the officer needs to be satisfied that you have sufficient funds for your entire stay and that the money is genuinely yours with a clear, credible source. Nigerian applicants commonly make these financial evidence mistakes, submitting bank statements that only show an ending balance without transaction history, providing statements for accounts that have been inactive and were suddenly activated for the application, submitting statements that show money coming in from unclear or unverified sources, and failing to explain large or unusual transactions. How to avoid it? Submit complete bank statements, all pages, showing full transaction history for at least 3 to 6 months. Include your salary payment schedule, business income documentation, or any other evidence of regular income. If there are large transactions in your statement, explain them with supporting documentation, a letter from your employer confirming a bonus payment, property sale documents, an inheritance letter. Your financial story must be clear, consistent, and verifiable. Canada Mistake 6. Not proving strong ties to your home country. Canada, like the US, requires applicants to demonstrate that they have compelling reasons to return home after their visit. But because most Canada visitor visa decisions are made without a face-to-face interview, your ties to Nigeria must be demonstrated entirely through documents and written explanations. You cannot rely on a confident in-person answer to save you. Many Nigerian applicants submit their financial documents and travel plans but neglect to include any evidence of what is tying them to Nigeria. No employment letter. No property documents. No family information. No evidence of ongoing commitments. And the officer, assessing the application from a file with no ability to ask follow-up questions, concludes that there is insufficient evidence of ties to the home country and refuses. How to avoid it? Treat the Ties to Home Country section of your Canada application with the same seriousness as the financial section. Include your employment letter with confirmation of your leave approval and return date. Include property documents if you own property. Include family documents, marriage certificate, children's birth certificates. Include evidence of ongoing business operations if you are self-employed. Include any other document that proves Nigeria is where your life is and where you intend to return. Mistakes that apply to both US and Canada. Shared Mistake 1. Using fraudulent documents or unverifiable information. I want to speak very directly about this because it is a real pattern and it has life-altering consequences. The use of fraudulent documents, fake employment letters, fabricated bank statements, forged invitation letters, in US and Canada visa applications is not just a mistake. It is a crime. And both the US and Canada have sophisticated verification systems that catch it. In Nigeria, the EFCC investigated over 1,200 immigration fraud cases in 2025. A Lagos police operation uncovered a 500 million Nigerian nairas visa scam ring operating out of what presented itself as a legitimate educational consultancy. 6 suspects were arrested in Abuja for defrauding over 300 people with fake H-1B visa promises. These are not isolated incidents. Visa fraud is widespread and the consequences for applicants who knowingly use fraudulent documents are severe. A permanent ban from the US. A 5-year ban from Canada. Criminal liability in Nigeria. The tragedy is that many of the people caught in these situations were victims of fraudulent consultants. They did not know the documents they were submitting were fake. They paid money to someone who promised to help them and ended up with fraudulent documents and the consequences that came with them. How to avoid it? Only work with registered, credible immigration consultants or travel agents. Verify every document yourself before submitting it. If someone prepared a document for you, read it and confirm that every detail is accurate. Never submit a document you did not personally verify. If something feels wrong or too good to be true, it usually is. Shared mistake 2. Applying at the wrong time. Both US and Canada visa applications are time-sensitive in ways that most people underestimate. Applying too close to your intended travel date. Applying during periods when you know your financial situation is weak. Applying before you have built a sufficient employment history. Applying before you own any significant assets or have strong ties to document. Many Nigerian applicants apply for their visa because a trip opportunity came up rather than because their situation is genuinely strong enough to support the application. And a rushed application with a weak financial history, limited employment tenure, and no ties documentation is almost guaranteed to fail, regardless of how much they want to make the trip. How to avoid it? Apply when your situation is genuinely strong, not when a trip opportunity presents itself. If your bank statement is not yet where it needs to be, wait 3 more months. If you just started your job 2 months ago, wait until you have at least 6 months of employment history. If you have not yet acquired any significant ties to Nigeria, invest time in building them. Timing your application to match your strongest period of financial and professional stability is one of the most underrated strategies for approval. Shared mistake 3. Using poor quality or inexperienced visa agents. The Nigerian visa agent industry has a significant problem with unqualified, unregistered, and in some cases actively fraudulent operators. And many Nigerian visa rejections, particularly for US and Canada, happen not because of the applicant's situation but because of the poor quality of guidance they received. An inexperienced agent gives you the wrong document checklist, fills out your forms with errors, coaches you to answer interview questions in ways that raise flags, or worse, provides fraudulent documents that get your application permanently flagged. How to avoid it? Research any visa agent or consultancy before giving them money or your documents. Ask for specific credentials. Look for reviews from people who have actually used their services successfully. Be very cautious of agents who promise guaranteed approvals. Nobody can guarantee a visa approval, and anyone who does is either lying or planning to use fraudulent methods. Section 4. What to do if you have been rejected. If you have already been rejected, for the US or Canada, this section is for you. A rejection is not the end, but it requires a strategic response, not an emotional one. Step 1. Read your rejection letter carefully. Both the US and Canada provide written notification of refusal. The US refusal letter cites the specific section of immigration law under which you were refused, usually 214. The Canada refusal letter gives reasons for the decision. These letters are your roadmap. Read them. Step 2. For Canada specifically, request your GCMS notes. These are the officer's detailed notes from your application, what they saw, what concerned them, what they concluded. Request them through a Canadian citizen or resident via an access to information request on the IRCC website. They are invaluable for understanding exactly what to fix. Step 3. Do not reapply immediately with the same application. Something has to genuinely change. More time in your job. A stronger bank statement. Property acquired. Clearer travel purpose. The officer who reviews your second application will see your previous refusal. If nothing has changed, the outcome is likely to be the same. Step 4. Consider professional help for your reapplication. If your first application failed, a qualified immigration consultant who can review your previous application, understand what went wrong, and help you build a stronger case is worth the investment. Step 5. Give it time. For US visa reapplications, there is no mandatory waiting period, but most advisors recommend at least 3 to 6 months to allow your situation to genuinely improve. For Canada, the same principle applies. Wait until something meaningful has changed. And that is your complete guide to the mistakes Nigerians make during US and Canada visa interviews, and exactly how to avoid every single one of them. The people who get approved are not luckier or richer or better connected than the people who get rejected. They are better prepared. They understand what the officer is actually looking for. They tell a consistent, honest, compelling story in their documents, in their interview answers, and in their body language. You now have that knowledge. Use it. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps more Nigerians find this information when they need it. Share it with anyone you know who is preparing for a US or Canada visa interview. And subscribe to the channel because I post visa guides, immigration updates, and travel content specifically for Nigerians every week. Drop your situation in the comments. Are you preparing for your first application or reapplying after a rejection? Tell me your country, US or Canada, and I will give you specific honest advice in the comments. I read every single one. And if you need professional support preparing your application, document review, interview coaching, or full application management, reach out to Social and Travels. The link is in the description. Let us get this right. See you in the next video.